In Ukraine, satellite images like this have revealed the extent of defences being built by Russia in the areas they currently occupy in the east of the country in preparation for an expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. Those images have been analysed by BBC Verify. It's a new service launched today. It brings together 60 journalists with a range of forensic and investigative skills to fact-check data and help explain complex stories, as well as counter disinformation. Our analysis editor, Ros Atkins, has more from the newsroom.
Ukraine's expected to launch an offensive soon, and here at BBC Verify we've been looking at how Russia is bolstering its defences. Here's the front line with territory controlled by Russia marked in red. Bakhmut has been highlighted because this has hosted some of the fiercest fighting in the war, and we know that around Bakhmut both sides are using trenches. This is a Ukrainian soldier, and trenches are a crucial part of how Russia has gone about fortifying all of the front line. That process has been mapped by the open source analyst Brady Afrik. Each one of these black dots marks a new Russian fortification. And let's focus on a couple of locations. First of all, Tokmak. It's a small but strategically important city. You can see it here on the south of this satellite image, with Ukrainian positions being further north. And look what the Russians have done. They've built a first defensive line, a second one behind it, and then a third one around the city of Tokmak itself. We also know in Ukrainian media there are reports that the Russians are removing civilians from Tokmak in order to further fortify the city. And we can understand all of these fortifications if we look at other satellite images too. In this one, we see furthest back from the front line artillery positions, then a trench network for the soldiers, then dragon's teeth. Now these are concrete obstacles designed to stop tanks in their tracks. Also targeting tanks are huge ditches dug by vehicles such as this. And if we go back to this satellite image, the first line of defense is an anti-tank ditch. So that's one location we've looked at. Here's a second location BBC Verify has been studying. It concerns the peninsula of Crimea, which was annexed in 2014 by Russia. And this satellite image shows a beach on the west coast of Crimea. You see dragon's teeth running up the shore of the Black Sea. To the north of the beach, a bunker running through it, a trench which BBC Verify has measured at around 15 miles. And these piles of wood here are being used by the Russians to reinforce the trenches they're building. I'd also highlight this fortification here, which we know could be used for a tank or armoured vehicle should it be facing towards the sea. We should add, though, that we don't know if Ukraine has the capacity to attack Crimea from the sea. What we can be certain of, though, is the significance of the number of resources that Russia has committed to fortifying its defences. Now we wait to see if Ukraine attacks.
Ross, thank you. And you can find out more about the BBC Verify service, what it's going to do, how it's going to do it, on the BBC News website.
A series of attacks has been carried out on Russian soil, with a border settlement inside the country overrun for the first time in the war. A militia, which is seeking to overthrow the Kremlin and free Russia from President Putin, is thought to be behind the incursion. The group is said to have crossed the border from Ukraine, but Kyiv says it is not involved. For months now, much of the fighting in Ukraine has focused on the southeast of the country, particularly around the town of Bakhmut in the Donbas region. But now Russia says a group of Ukrainians has crossed the border and attacked the neighbouring region of Belgorod. The local governor there says the militia attacked Grivonovsky, where he says Russian forces are searching for the group. Neil Connery has the latest.
Moscow says these are saboteurs who've crossed from Ukraine into Russia's Belgorod region. They're ethnically Russian volunteers fighting for Ukraine. A Russian helicopter fires flares as the incursion continues. Elsewhere in Russia's Belgorod region, smoke said to be from a Russian helicopter which has crashed. The Liberty of Russia Legion appeared on social media saying, "We are returning home to end the Kremlin's dictatorship. We are Russians just like you. We want our children to grow up in peace." Sirens sounded in the Russian city of Belgorod during the day as reports of the incursion began to emerge. Large traffic queues built up as people tried to flee, despite the authorities' attempts to reassure civilians. The governor of Belgorod region appealed for calm. He denied what he called false reports of shelling on residential areas. He said they were designed to spread panic among civilians. Russian state TV said President Putin had been informed of what it called saboteurs trying to break into the Belgorod region. On a visit to Berlin last week, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine does not attack Russian territory. Kyiv today denied responsibility, saying Russian citizens from 2 paramilitary groups were behind the incursion. Neil Connery, ITV News.